In this tutorial we're going to be learning how to crochet basic cables. They're easier than they look and I'm going to take you through everything step by step. I'm going to be covering both left and right leaning cables in this tutorial, so let's jump in. Start by making a slip knot using your preferred method. That's how I like to make my slip knots. Then your starting chain needs to be a multiple of 6 plus 3. For the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going for a chain of 27 and I'll meet you once I've made my starting chain. So our first few rows are kind of setup rows for future rows of cables, and our first 2 rows are actually rows of half double crochet. So to start row 1, we're going to make a half double crochet in the second chain from the hook. And sometimes with crochet we have a chain at the beginning of our rows that counts as a stitch. For half double crochet I usually just do 1 chain and it doesn't count as a stitch. So we're going to work a half double crochet in that second chain from the hook. So to make a half double crochet, yarn over, put your hook into that chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. You should now have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. You're going to repeat this into each chain across. So a half double crochet into each chain, and I will meet you at the end of the row. So there's my first row finished. I've worked a half double crochet in each chain across. The first chain does not count as a stitch, and your stitch count should now be 1 less than your starting chain. My starting chain was 27, so I've now got 26 stitches, and for all future rows I will always have 26 stitches. To start row 2, make 1 chain, that does not count as a stitch, then turn your work over. We're now going to work a half double crochet into each stitch across, starting with this first stitch here. So work a half double crochet into each stitch across, and I'll meet you at the end of row 2 and I'll show you what's different for row 3. So here I am at the end of row 2 and I'm ready to move on to row 3. So to start row 3, chain 1, that does not count as a stitch, then turn your work over. Now work a half double crochet into the first stitch and then another one into the second stitch. So I've done 2 half double crochets to start the row. So for the next stitch we're going to work a stitch called a front post treble crochet in around the post of a stitch 2 rows below. That sounds complicated, but I am going to take you through it all step by step. So we're going to be working a treble crochet. That's a US treble crochet, not a UK treble crochet, and we're going to be doing it around the post of the stitch. So usually when we make a stitch we go underneath the loops at the top of the stitch here to make the stitch. For a front post stitch we actually go around the post of the stitch down here. So we're going to be working front post stitches into row 1 down here. I'm going to skip the first 2, so there's my first half double and second from row 1. Then this is my 3rd stitch here, so I'm going to make a front post treble crochet around it. So to do that, yarn over twice, then we're going to go into the space between the 2nd and the 3rd half double crochets down there, just like that, gone straight through my crochet. And I'm going to bring the hook back up the other side of the stitch, so between the 3rd and the 4th stitch here, like that. So that there is the post of the stitch, and I've gone around it from the front, hence the name front post. So to now work the treble crochet, yarn over, and we're going to pull the yarn over first to the back, then all the way through to the front. Then I've got 4 loops on my crochet hook, and I'm going to finish off the treble crochet as normal. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So there's our first front post treble crochet. We're going to work 3 more front post trebles around the next 3 stitches from row 1. So I'll work those with you. Yarn over twice, then into the next stitch, so this stitch down here around the post of it. We're going to work that front post treble crochet again. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So yarn over twice, put your hook around the post of the next stitch in row 1, yarn over, pull a loop to the front. Now I've got 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then one more time, yarn over twice, put your hook around the post of the next stitch of row 1, yarn over, pull your loop to the front, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So what we've made there is this part of the cable here, ready for when we do the cross of the cable in a couple of rows time. So in the next 2 stitches we're going to work a half double crochet into each of them, but it can get a little bit confusing because the stitches we've just worked are kind of disconnected from row 2. There's almost like there's 2 different rows here. So what we're going to do is, if we look at our work from the top, so these are the half double crochets from row 2, I'm going to count across and we're going to skip 4 of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So because we've worked these 4 front post trebles, and then into this 5th stitch here we're going to work a normal half double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going in there to make my half double crochet. That's 1 and 2. And then we're going to repeat that across, working 4 front post trebles and then 2 normal half doubles. So I'll work one more stitch repeat with you. So yarn over twice, and then we're going to skip 2 stitches from row 1. So skip, skip, then in the next stitch we're going to go around the post of the stitch like that. So I've skipped these 2 here because we did normal half double crochets, then a front post treble here. So that's my first front post treble, and we're going to do 3 more. So again, yarn over twice, hook around the next stitch, the post of the stitch from row 1, then finish off that treble as usual. And another front post treble, that's the 3rd front post stitch. And then we'll do 1 more. So there's my 4 front post trebles, and then we're going to do the same as what we did over here. We're going to look at the tops of the stitches, count 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then into that next stitch I'm going to work a half double crochet and then a half double in the next stitch as well. So continue repeating that across to the end of the row. You should finish with 2 half double crochets, and you should have an even number of these groups of 4 front post stitches. So I'm going to have 4 groups of front post stitches. So I'll meet you at the end of the row and I'll show you row 4. So this is what your crochet should look like at the end of row 3. So from this point forwards we are going to have a right and a wrong sides to our crochet. So the side that you can see the cables, these raised stitches, is the front, and then I'll actually show you on this one. So this is the front, and then the back looks quite different. So if I say front and back or right side and wrong side, that's what I'm referring to for the rest of this tutorial. So for row 4, chain 1 and then turn your work over. So this row is a row of just plain half double crochet, but we need to make sure we're crocheting the half double crochets in the right place. So I'm going to work half double crochet into each stitch across, and we need to make sure we're following this line of stitches here and not accidentally crocheting into these stitches down here, these half double crochets down here. You need to crochet in the tops of your front post stitches from the previous row, and I did make that mistake when I first learned cables. So yeah, just make sure you're crocheting in the top of that whole row. So yeah, continue crocheting half double crochet into each stitch across, and I'll meet you at the end of the row. And on the next row we're finally going to be learning how to do these left and right leaning cables. So this is what your crochet should look like on the wrong side at the end of row 4, and you can see we've got these skipped stitches down here that we don't work into. So we're now ready for row 5, and row 5 is different for left-handed crocheters, so I have filmed this row separately for you. Usually I just flip the footage and you have the same audio and everything for left-handed tutorials, but for this row I have re-recorded it because your cables actually work differently when you're working this stitch left-handed. So just so you know, if you've come from the right-handed tutorial, this part of the tutorial is different to that one. So to start row 5, chain 1, that does not count as a stitch, then turn your work over. We're now going to start our row just the same as we did with row 3, and we're going to work a half double crochet into the first 2 stitches. So they're going in there for the first half double crochet, and then the next half double crochet. So from this point forwards, when we're working our front post stitches, we're only going to be working our front post stitches into front post stitches, not into any half double crochets like we did on row 3. So if we have a look at our sample here, you can see we have got 2 different sort of angles of the cables. We've got one that leans to the left and one that leans to the right. So we're going to start off with the right leaning cable because it's slightly easier. So to do that right leaning cable as a left-handed crocheter specifically, we're going to be working a front post treble around the 3rd front post stitch down here. So I'm going to yarn over twice, and I'm going to skip this one, and into this stitch here I'm going to do a front post treble. And then into the next front post treble here, we're going to work another front post treble. That's the 4th front post treble of those 4 front post trebles there. And you can see we've kind of got an angle going on now where the stitches are leaning off to one side. So now we're going to go back and work front post stitches into the 1st and the 2nd front post stitches. And by working these stitches out of order, that creates the lean, and then that creates the cross that forms the cable. So yarn over twice, and then we're going to work a front post treble around the post of that first stitch there. Just like that. You can see how it's starting to form that cable. Then we're going to go in and do our last front post stitch around the 2nd front post stitch from row 3. So there is our first cable. So as a left-handed crocheter, that should be a cable that leans to the right-hand side. It's sometimes called a cable in front because we've worked those stitches in front of the last 2 stitches. So now we're going to do what we did in row 3, and we're going to look at the top of our work and skip the next 4 stitches. So skip, 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 and then a half double crochet into the next 2 stitches. So now we've done a right leaning cable, we're going to do a left leaning cable next, and as a left-handed crocheter that means that we work the first 2 stitches of this cross the same as over here, but when we worked our 3rd and 4th front post treble over here, we worked in front of those 2 stitches we'd just worked. For this one it's a bit more fiddly because we're going to be working them behind the stitches, and this one can get quite fiddly. So let's work it together. So we're going to do those first 2 front post trebles the same as before. So I'm going around the 3rd front post treble here. And then I go around the 4th front post treble here. So now we're going to go back and we're going to work the 1st and then the 2nd front post trebles again, but we're going to do it behind these, and this can get quite fiddly. I'll do my best to show you it, but I'm not sure how successful I was in the right-handed version of this, so we'll see. So I've yarned over twice, and then I'm going to put my hook behind those 2 front post stitches there. So I've literally gone behind them, and I'm going to go around the post of this first treble crochet. And then at this point I have a bit of a trick here that I kind of came up with as I was crocheting these because I found this really fiddly. So I'm actually going to pull these 2 stitches that I've already made down over the top of my hook like that. So I'm still around the post of that stitch there. I'm still behind these, but these are tucked down out of the way now, and it makes your life so much easier when you're working these cables. So then I'm going to finish off my front post treble as normal. So I've got 4 loops on my hook here. I'm going to pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through, ooh, pull through 2. And then we're going to do the same on the second row. So I'm kind of going to leave these pushed down there to make my life a bit easier. So I'm going to yarn over twice, put my hook behind those 2 stitches and around the post of that second stitch there, and then pull these stitches down like that. And then we're going to finish off that front post stitch as we usually would. I hope I've not gone too far off the screen there. I feel like I'm going off the screen a little bit. I apologise. So there are those 4 front post stitches, and that creates a left leaning cable as a left-handed crocheter. So now we're going to repeat that across. So we're going to skip 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then work 2 normal half double crochets, and then do a right leaning cable, so where you do the second 2 stitches in the front, 2 half double crochets, and then a left leaning cable where you do the 2 front post trebles behind the previous 2 stitches. So repeat that all the way across your row, and come back to this tutorial and I'll show you what we do moving forward and what our row repeat is for this stitch. This is what your crochet should look like at the end of row 5, and you might notice that your stitches are being pulled down just a little bit because of those crossed front post stitches. This does all even out the more you crochet, and particularly does well after blocking to get this nice and flat. So row 6 is the same as row 4, chain 1, then turn your work over, and then we're going to work a half double crochet into each stitch across, making sure that we're not working into those skipped half double crochets down here, and we're working into the tops of our front post stitches up here instead. So work those half double crochets in each stitch across, and then I'll come back to this tutorial and I will show you what we're doing for row 7, which is the final row of our 4-row cable repeat. So to start row 7, chain 1 and turn. Row 7 is essentially the same as row 3, but we're going to be working into front post stitches instead of half double crochets like we did with row 3 down here. So next, work a half double crochet into the first 2 stitches only. So we're going to work our front post stitches in order, so we're not doing any crossing again, we're just working them straight in order. So my first front post stitch is in this stitch here, and then our next stitch is a little bit hidden, but it's actually that stitch there. If I pull the first and the third ones, you can kind of see the top of the stitch there. So I'm going to do a front post treble around that stitch there, and then into the next 2 stitches as well. So there's my 4 front post trebles. We've not done any crossing, they're just worked straight. And then we're going to repeat that across. So we're going to skip 4 at the back, 1, 2, 3, 4, work a half double crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then a front post double crochet into the top of the next cable. We're going to work these stitches in order as well, so no crossing. We're just going to do normal front post trebles into the top of each of these front post trebles there. So my second one's in there, and then this third one is a little bit tricky like the second one was over here because it's kind of hidden. So if I pull those apart, I can find the top of that stitch, well, the post of the stitch even there, and then that final one there. And then you're going to repeat this across for row 7. So skip 4 at the back, half double crochet 2, and then 4 straight front post treble crochets. And then repeat that across your row. And then for the repeats moving forward, you're going to repeat rows 4, 5, 6 and 7 of this tutorial moving forwards. until your piece is the size you want it to be. You can apply this stitch to lots of different patterns. You could maybe do a hat, a cowl, a scarf, a jumper. I really like crochet cables and I'd like to work with them more in future. Let me know down in the comments what tutorial you'd like to see next, and I'll see you again next week.